Yeah. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So my name is Riyad Al-Khawazmi. I'm a dentist originally, and right now I am an orthodontist. So I straighten teeth. I have an office.
Straightened my teeth.
Yes, I did that. I have an office in Canton. I work as a full-time associate professor with the University of Detroit Mercy also. And I mean, you are lucky, so lucky to have Brother Mustafa in this community. I loved him from the first time I met him. I still have a great respect. I cannot describe my feeling toward this man. He has a great vision. And his speech today is just added to that. I agreed with a lot of things that he said there. And he surprised me with a lot of things that he knew that, you know, even philosophical issues that is very, very tough to tackle. You know, I myself started, I would describe myself as a very simple Muslim. I'm not like Brother Mustafa. He has a lot of intellectual when he was young. And I have my friend here also. He has a lot of intellectual issues when he was young. I wasn't. Until 35, I was very simple Muslim. You know, I have trust, everything is good, I believe in God, I have no doubts, I've never questioned anything. My faith was so solid because it's so simple. It was not complicated. But one discussion with one of my friends, he's actually here today, about you know, our Islamic philosophy. This is what got me into this. I didn't have any questions or any doubts. I just started reading in our history. It became like addiction. I literally read 10 hours a day, every day, including yesterday. So I cannot live without reading. Actually, I remember Brother Mustafa, I'm not sure if you remember that in Hajj, he came to me, I was reading in Mina. I have my books there, and he said, what are you reading? So I told him, this is my hobby. This is how, you know, we became connected. I told him about my interest about this subject, atheism. Philosophy is a very dangerous science. I have to say that. I mean, now that I am on the other side, I see what kind of a dangerous move I just did to myself, because I wasn't, I mean, it is amazing, this science. It could destroy you, or if Allah will guide you to the right path with the right people, you might be saved. I like one thing that Brother Mustafa said, that religion is not responsible for proving the existence of God. And that is absolutely true. Religion doesn't prove the existence of God. Actually, there is one ayah, I'm not sure if I remember it correctly, وَقَالَتْ رُسُلُهُمْ أَفِي اللَّهِ شَكٌّ فَاطِرِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Is there any doubt? Even prophets will say, is there any doubt? You have to submit to the existence of God first, then the prophet and religion will start talking to you. This is given. That the existence of God is a given issue. After you do that, then we talk about religion. And, you know, basically religion is responsible for, you know, describing the existence, you know, describing this entity, this being Allah Azza wa Jal, for us in a way that we can understand it, because it is a very complex thing for us to understand. And to your surprise, even philosophy is not responsible for the proof of the existence of God. I know that for a fact, because I am so in-depth in philosophy to be able to say that. And a lot of people, even philosophers, will disagree with me, but I know that they are wrong. Philosophy is not responsible for the proof of the existence of God. So what is responsible? It is the ayah, the ayah that Brother Mustafa mentioned. وَسَنُرِيكُمْ آيَاتِنَا سَنُرِيهُمْ آيَاتِنَا فِي الْآفَاقِ وَفِي أَنفُسِهِمْ. These are the proof of God. Al-afaq is the universe. You go to visit. So what is responsible for the proof of existence of God actually is science. One of them is physics. This will, if you go to that in a smart way and without any biases, then you will find Allah Azza wa Jal. And biology, like Brother Musa was talking about, the evolution theory, and the existence actually of the science of our soul, which is the understanding. These are actually, in philosophy, these are the three areas that can prove the existence of God: biology, your soul, the science of soul, which is the ability of our mind to judge. I know that every triangle is 180 degrees without seeing all the triangles. I make an infinite decision, an infinite call, just by seeing a few triangles. I have the proof for that, because I know every triangle that exists from now until the day of judgment is going to be 180 degrees. This ability comes from something special we have. Animals don't have this ability. So these are actually the areas that will prove the existence of God. And now we're facing the new atheism. It's a new move, and these people are highly sophisticated. They have a machinery that is very complex. And I watch their YouTubes, and I watch what they're doing. These people are, in my mind, are like the people who came with magic to face Moses alayhi salatu wasalam. When you see the magic they will come with, they will make you frightened. Even if you are Moses, you will be frightened. وَجَاءُوا بِسِحْرٍ عَظِيمٍ. And these people will come with argument that will cause sihr to your mind. Your mind will be blown out, basically. So, in order to reach the truth, there's two ways for us. There's a simple way, the one I was using for the first 35 years of my life, which is very simple, and take it in a simple way and you'll be safe. Believe in Allah Azza wa Jal, and follow the instruction of religion, and this is where Salah and Sawm will encourage us. And there is a very complicated way, the one I did later on. It's a lot of work and it's dangerous. But the key for that is one word: endurance, sabr. You have to be very patient. If you go to the difficult, you have to be very, very patient. So today I'm going to go to the main point for atheism. This is just a general overview for atheism. In this area here, we have the theists. These are mu'mineen, which is basically the people who will know, I know for sure that Allah Azza wa Jal exists. Anybody who knows for sure Allah Azza wa Jal exists is called theist. This word agnostic is like yaqeen. I know for sure. Once you say for sure, then you're agnostic. So نحن مؤمنين بيقين, that means we are agnostic theists. There is something here, like before that, in this area here, maybe you can call it like المؤلفة قلوبهم, where you believe in Allah. I know that Allah exists, but I'm not so sure. You have some doubts. Like people who start believing as if become believer newly, or they enter a new religion, so they believe in Allah Azza wa Jal, that they're not solid into that idea. So they are in a shaky ground. On the other end here we have the atheists. They know for sure Allah doesn't exist, or that God doesn't exist. Okay? Whether, the definition, they have different definition, whether it is they know or they believe, or it is a state of disbelief. So they argue about the terminology, which is fine. I mean, we can deal with these issues. These are what we call the agnostic atheists, the one that they know and claim that they know for sure with yaqeen that God doesn't exist. Now, a lot of atheists, because some of them are very sophisticated, they knew it's very hard to defend this position. This position is self-defeated. It will defeat itself. If you know what you're doing with philosophy, you can destroy this position easily. So a lot of them said, well, we're not really here. We are in this area here. We are called agnostic atheists. That means I know that God doesn't exist, but I could be wrong. So this is a better area for them to defend. So a lot of smart people are actually in this area, the agnostic atheists. Okay? Now there's a group called agnostic. This is where I don't know for sure that he exists or he doesn't exist. They cannot. It's a state of knowledge. It's a position they took that knowing the existence of a God is beyond the human comprehension. We're totally beyond our comprehension. We cannot decide whether he exists or not. This is called agnostic, la adriyin, that we don't know. The answer is, I don't know. Does he exist? I don't know. Does he doesn't exist? No, I don't know. This is their answer. This is more dangerous because a lot of people who are believers, like Muslims or Christians, if they become atheists, they will move into agnostic. It's an easier position for them. And there is something called deist in Arabic, rububi. That means I believe in a deity, I believe there's a creator, but there is no messengers or anything. He doesn't communicate with us, he doesn't care about us, he's in his own world and we are in our own world, but absolutely there is some evidence that there is a creator. Classical example of that would be Einstein. Einstein is a deist. So these are the general groups that we deal with, whether it is theist, atheist, agnostic atheist, or agnostic, and some deist. So I'm going to go straight forward to the argument that they use. And one of the greatest arguments they deal with, the problem of evil, the creation of evil. How come we have a God, he is so good, and he cares about us, and he has all that mercy, and he's so potent, he can eliminate evil like that, and then he created. I mean, for them, they're saying, these two things cannot exist. You cannot talk about our God, omnipotent, he can do whatever he wants, omniscient, he's aware of everything, omnibenevolent, he's so merciful, and then you talk that evil exists. They're saying these two things cannot go together. Okay? So that's what they're talking about, that there is a contradiction between these two things. The problem of evil probably is the number one problem that will cause people to doubt the existence of God. You know, if you look to Aleppo, Halab, what's happening, and all these kids and women killed, and then sometimes in our conscience, I mean, why is Allah just not helping them? You start questioning, you know, have questions in your mind like that. Or if you think about natural disaster, this is a human disaster caused by the human. A natural disaster, like what happened in Indonesia, 2004, the tsunami. You know, 250,000 died in a matter of hours, a lot of them Muslims. So that's a natural disaster, that's not a human. If you talk, sometimes we defend the evil caused by human by the free will. In order to have a free will, you have to allow evil to happen. So what about the natural disaster, earthquakes, and volcanoes, and all these things? These kill people, cause a lot of evil, and it's not related to the free will. So how are we going to now defend this idea? So they have so many different arguments, but this is the heart of the argument, that these two things cannot exist. Either you have a God that cannot prevent evil, then he's impotent, ajiz, which we cannot accept that, or he's not aware of this evil, then he doesn't know everything, and we cannot accept that, or he is sharir, astaghfirullah, and we cannot accept that. You know, these things cannot go with the characteristic of Allah Azza wa Jal that we believe in. So now I'm going to go to you, I'm going to try to describe to you how these people think. Because these people, when they talk about God, they're talking about a different entity that we think of. They have a different kind of imagination of what God is. And that's why they will ask you about Alibo. Now, if you are not a God, if you are the king and the controller of the universe, you have control over the whole universe, the whole solar system. Would you stop the war in Aleppo? Would you interfere and say, you know what, stop it? You know, I'm going to make some judgment. I probably will do that. I mean, I will interfere. If I have such a power and I'm watching what's happening, I'll come and say, you know what, stop it. I'm going to, you know, you're wrong and you're right, and end this misery for these people. Kids and women for years. I mean, so this is the question they will ask you. And they make you think, well, if you are a human, you will do that. Why Allah is not doing it for them? And He is so merciful, He's more powerful than you, and He's more knowledgeable, and He's not doing it. So it's that question, maybe they have a point. So there are two entities. This is Allah Azza wa Jal that we believe in. Allah Azza wa Jal that laysa kamithlihi shay. He is all good, He's all powerful, He's all merciful, but nothing like us. You cannot compare His goodness to my goodness. You cannot compare His power to my power. and his mercy to mine. It's a different kind of being. But the God that they talk about is this one. These people they talk about a human-like guy. They're talking about a human, and they make him so powerful, so merciful, so knowledgeable, but he's still a human. Okay? Now there is a difference between these two entities. The main difference is here at the bottom. I'm not sure if you can see this one. Basically, Allah Azza wa Jal, all his acts, they follow from his perfect being that he is. That his characteristic and his nature and his acts follow from that, come from that. Because he is so good, he's so powerful, everything he's doing comes from that nature. It follows from that nature. It's not controlled. So his act comes after the nature of Allah Azza wa Jal. This human being that became so powerful and so knowledgeable, like me or you, if we can assume something like that exists, which actually doesn't exist, his perfection, if he becomes so perfect, it's because of his act. I became so good because I do a lot of good. I become so powerful because I can do a lot of things. So my perfect characteristics comes out of my action. My action control my perfection. If I don't do all these goods, I'm not all good. So I need to act in a certain way in order to be that perfect being. So they're trying to disprove the existence that we know that doesn't exist. There is nothing called somebody who is so perfect but in a human nature. We are talking about a different entity. And this is how I'm going to show you how they think. This is their mind. This is how they're thinking, these people. When it comes to the creations, now creation, there are all these possible creations that's going to happen now. First, we have all these beings that you can create that is all pure and good. There's nothing evil about them. Okay? Then there are creations that the Creator can create that they have lots of good in them, but they have a little evil in their nature. It's mixed. And it's up to the Creator whether he's going to create them or not. It's his decision. And there's a third group. They have lots of evil in their nature, but a little good. Okay? And the last one would be all evil, which is very clear. That's not going to be created from a God. He's all good. So now let's compare what's happening in their mind. This is their logic when they think about this. It's very obvious that the creations that's all good will be created, whether you're talking about the God that we believe in or the God that they talk about. Because this is a perfect being who's all good, and these are creations that is all good. It's going to be created. It's very obvious. There's nothing wrong with that. And the last entity here, also they both agreed on that, because now you're talking about some creations that their nature is so evil, and they have very little good in them, and it's probably they're not going to be created because these are beings that is good in their nature. So both of them they're not gonna create these evil because it's gonna interfere with their act. But the difference is here. This is the problem in this one. When you're talking about when Allah Azza wa Jalla created all the being that is all good, and this was done completed, there is nothing left good and pure unless it was created. Now we come to the next level of creations. What are you gonna do about that? We're talking about the creations or being that have a lot of good in them, but there's some evil. They're mixed, and it is up to to the God power to create these or not, because it doesn't affect him. Allah Azza wa Jal, with this kind of perfection that he is, his acts follow from his nature. He's going to create these because he's under no obligation. If he created a little bit of evil with a lot of good, he's not going to lose that, because his perfection doesn't come from his act. His act, whatever, it's up to him. He is perfect whether he do that or he doesn't. He's not under any obligation to anything. Okay? So that's why Allah Azza wa Jal will create these beings. And that's what the Malaika didn't get when they said تخلق فيها من يفسد فيها ويسفك الدماء. Even the Malaika, this pure creation, they start doubting, why would you do something like that? Allah Azza wa Jal knows something they don't know. He knows that they're looking at that little evil this creation. But Allah Azza wa Jalla, He said, I know something you don't know about this creation. He has a lot of good in him. Okay. Now, what the atheist is trying to prove to you in this argument is this one. If I'm a human and I became so perfect, now my action is controlling my perfection. If I don't act a certain way, I'm not going to be a perfect being. I'm not going to be all good because I have to act good, unless I'm going to lose that title. My perfection follows from my action. I am under some obligation. I have some obligation to my act. I cannot do anything I want. Okay? So if I am in that position, I have this perfection that I acquired through my act, and then you give me a choice of doing something like that, I would say, no, I cannot do it because I'm a perfect being. I'm all good now. If I do something bad, I'm going to lose that title. So I will choose not to creation. And that's what these people are doing. They're proving to you that a human like God doesn't exist. But we already know that. We agree with that. We know that a God like us, in my image, is not going to happen. This idea of a being like that doesn't exist. And this evil problem of evil argument is trying actually to disprove the existing of a being like that. Okay? Actually, the presence of evil in the universe is an evidence that a God, with all that he's not under the obligation of his act, does exist. Otherwise, why would the evil will exist? Okay? And what also supports this argument is this one. This one, something like that, will not come from Allah Azza wa Jalla. Basically, Allah Azza wa Jalla will never create a universe where the evil is the default and the goodness is the accident that happened. He will create a universe that is the goodness is the default and a little bit of evil is going to happen in that. Yes, something like that will come from a God who is not under any obligation to anything. Even his act doesn't fall under any obligation because he is perfect by himself. He doesn't need anything. He doesn't need to act one way or the other. So he's going to act by his nature. Okay? So this is why we know Allah Azza wa Jalla exists, because when we look at this universe, we will find that the goodness and even in a human, the goodness of human nature is always there. That doesn't mean there is no evil. There is evil, but it's not the default. Humans are not evil by naturally. They are evil because of circumstances that happen to them. Whether they're Muslim or not Muslim, they could turn evil. But that's not the nature of a human being. Okay? So this is the basic argument for these people. And so this problem of evil not only tricky for young Muslims that atheists are using it in their argument, but also we notice in the Malaika, and I might believe that this ayah is actually tackling the problem of evil, that this issue is so complicated, even in Malaika doubted it. Why would such an evil will come out of you when you are under no obligation? We're here, we're doing all this good, but Allah Azza wa Jal is seeing something. Allah Azza wa Jal, because His nature is good, He's looking at the good part. There's a lot of good here, and He cannot eliminate all this good for a little evil. He cannot. His nature won't allow that, because Allah Azza wa Jal is good and He cares about the good. So for the summary, God will create evil for really good reasons. There is a little evil, but there has to be a really good reason for that good to happen. This is the kind of evil will come from a God under no obligation in his act to anything. Now, whether I know that reason or I don't know it doesn't matter. I don't need to know why my son or why my dad or why me, not somebody else. You need to believe that this evil that happened to you, there has to be some good reason, whether you are aware of it now or not, and that's not related to the problem. And I believe the story of Musa alayhi salam with a good man reflect that part. When you are exposed to evil, the only thing we have as a human is patience, endurance. Okay? Because sometimes the wisdom, that good reason, that for the reason for it that evil happened is not clear to me. Sometimes that good reason is not clear from the very beginning. The only thing I have with my capacity as a human is to have endurance and patience and Allah Azza wa Jal might reveal that reason later on in life. And this is what the ayah say, وَأَمَّا الْغُلَامُ. Now he's explaining these reasons. وَأَمَّا الْغُلَامُ فَكَانَ أَبَوَاهُ مُؤْمِنَيْنِ فَخَشِينَا أَنْ يُرْهِقْهُمَا طُغْيَانًا وَكُفْرًا فَأَرَدْنَا أَنْ يُبَدِّلَهُمَا رَبُّهُمَا خَيْرًا مِنْهُ زَكَاةً وَأَقْرَبُ رُحْمًا. So there is a reason for that evil. I mean, the little child was, he was killed, but there was a reason, a good reason for that. Okay. The second argument that atheists will have is who created God? This is a famous quote that was used by Bertrand Russell. Bertrand Russell is a famous atheist of the 20th century. If there is one famous atheist in the 20th century, will be Bertrand Russell. And he's a mathematician, philosopher, and the man is a genius. He lived about 97 years. And this is what he quoted. He said, I was reading the John Stuart Miller biography and came up, he was 18 when he was reading that. He said, I came to this. My father taught me that the question, who made me, who created me, cannot be answered since it immediately suggests the further question, who created God? Now, this is a very smart man. He's a philosopher, he's a mathematician, and this statement convinced him that he said, from that point on, I gave up the idea of God. And he became atheist for the next, 80 years. So these arguments could deceive a lot of people, even very smart people. So who created God? Well, the one thing I need to tell you is to believe in uncaused cause, and to believe in something that is not created is unescapable. Whether you are atheist, whether you're theist, whether you're deist or agnostic, you cannot run away from that. You only need to be the basic rational. You need to have some rationality in you, because if you give up this thing, you give up your humanity. You're not even a human anymore. And I will explain to you why that this is unescapable. So you can't run away from theist to become atheist because of this reason, because you have to believe in uncaused cause even as an atheist. The only difference is, I am as a theist, as a believer, I believe in uncaused cause that is aware of himself, aware of his action, and he has intention, he's deliberate, he's acting based on a plan, and he knows what he's doing. Atheists believe the universe, maybe, or the force of gravity is the source of all this. So if you ask him what created the universe, he will tell, well, this is it. This is my uncaused cause. Or who created the universe came from force of gravity. Who created the force of gravity? He said, this is my uncaused cause. They have to end up at one stage. If you are rational, we say, this is it. This is my first one. So the difference between a theist and the atheist is his first uncaused cause is unaware of himself. He doesn't know his action. Mine, he's aware of what he's doing. That's the only difference. So, but the belief is there. How about agnostic? If you ask agnostic, do you believe the uncaused cause doesn't exist? He'll say, no, I don't know. This is their position. I don't know whether he exists. So he cannot deny that, and he cannot approve it for you. But he cannot deny the presence of uncaused cause. The only thing they believe is that it is totally beyond our comprehension. If it exists, we cannot know that. These are Rububiyin. They believe that God exists. There is actually an uncaused cause, but it is unaware of us, or he doesn't care about us. He's just in his own interest, and we have our own interest. So what I'm trying to show you that this argument is really silly, because they're inviting me, they're asking me to leave my religion because I believe in uncaused cause, to another idea that has also uncaused cause. I mean, it's not a reason at all to believe, to leave your religion. And I'm going to give you an example from a great famous, from a physicist, Hawking. He is an atheist. And that's what his argument. He said, as long there is a gravitational force, the universe can and will be created by itself. And he said, God, he's arguing with the believer, God is your unexplained cause, and this force gravity is mine. So I'm accepting it, accept it from me. So he's saying, actually, he believes in uncaused cause. There's no difference between me and Hawking. The only thing is his uncaused cause is gravity, and mine is Allah Azza wa Jal. But both of them are uncreated. So this is not a reason to change your faith. It has to be something else. And it's not clear here. He's saying, call it God if you want. Call gravity God if you want. But this is it. He said gravity, if you want to call it God, accept that. We cannot say that. Unfortunately, for Hawkins, we cannot accept that for him. Because when somebody believes in Allah Azza wa Jal, I don't care what the name. I really want him to believe in a certain thing. If he satisfies these conditions to me, I don't care what he call him, as long as he believes in a creator and these characteristics. It has to have these two characteristics in there. First, that cause, it has to be uncreated, non-created. So we agree on that. So all of us, we have that one. But there's a second condition. None of the creation's attributes can be attributed to him. Okay, nothing, because if there is attributes that is in the creation, if you attribute it to him, then it has been created, because now we're sharing some characteristic. So these two conditions are very important. Now I'm going to go to Hawkins' uncaused cause and test it to see if he believes in the same thing I believe in. Because remember, we don't believe in the name itself. As long as he believes in the idea, then we're on the same page. Now, these attributes of creations, they have two of them. One of them, these attributes either could be a deficient attributes or attributes of deficiency. Attributes of deficiency is sifat naqs, like if you're a liar, or if you sleep, or you get tired. These are sifat naqs. One of them, an example in the Quran, قال علمها عند ربي في كتاب لا يضل ربي ولا ينسى. Allah cannot forget. This is one, because I can't forget, Allah cannot. Allah Azza wa Jal لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم. These are صفات نقص. These are attributes of deficiency. Anybody who has sinah or no or nisyan or he's lying, or these cannot happen. We cannot share these with the Creator. Absolutely no. Now there is a second kind of attributes called a deficient attributes, like science, ilm, or qudra. Is he capable? Where we have some sharing here. Okay, now this is very important. I'll take the ayah here. واتخذ قوم موسى من بعده من حليهم عجلا جسدا له خوار ألم يروا أنه لا يكلمهم. This is the characteristic Allah Azza wa Jal. He was criticizing, Allah Azza wa Jal is criticizing this ajl by he's not talking to them. Because I am a human being and I can't talk. So this is what we call a deficient attribute. That means it is sifa. This is an attribute, but it's not in its perfect form in me. It's in a little bit deficient form. Like my science, this is a good attribute, but it's deficient. I don't have the perfect science. I don't have the perfect power. I don't have the perfect sifat kalam. I don't have the perfect. So all these sifat, I will take these sifat, that good one, that I have them in a deficient form, carry them to the ultimate, the perfect form, and then attribute them to Allah Azza wa Jal. This is where we are. So we cannot share them in the same kind. It has to be a different kind. Mine is deficient, his is perfect. So this is what it is, okay? So now if we take this gravity, is it aware of me? I will ask Hawking, is it aware of me? Because I am aware of other things around me. Is this force aware of me or not? I can talk. This is a deficient attribute. That means it is an attribute, but it is in a deficient form. It has to be in its perfect form in the Creator who created me. Is this force can create me? Is it aware of me? Is it potent? So I will carry all these good attributes that is in a deficient form that attributed to me. It has to be in its perfect form in Him. Otherwise, where did it come to me? I mean, I have it. Where did it come from? It has to be from the number one cause, which is, he said, that it's the gravity. So the fact that it cannot talk to me is like the ajal. It cannot talk to me. This force has to talk to me because I can't talk. I got this characteristic in its deficient form. Whoever gave me that characteristic has to have it in its perfect form. He cannot talk like me, but he has to be able to talk. If that force cannot, then it's not God. This is the bottom line for the whole thing. If you could be a being that is not created and does not attribute, it doesn't have any attributes of the creations to him in the same way, then we're talking about the same God. Unfortunately, Hawkins' God doesn't have these characteristics, so I will dismiss it. So we don't care about the name itself. We care about the being itself. It has to be satisfied certain conditions and attributes. A third argument they will use: science explains so much of what we use to attribute to God. We don't need God anymore. We have science. It is explaining everything we want. So that's one thing they will say. The more we know of this universe, the less we need to believe in God, because now I can explain anything with these laws and these equations. I can explain everything in the universe. So why we are talking about God anymore? We don't need it. So this is their argument. Well, we have to be very smart here, because science's job is to describe and explain all the natural phenomena. Everything happening in the universe is explained by science. Whether you believe in Allah or you don't, doesn't matter. As long as there are phenomena, you test them, you can explain them. Okay? Now, this is the job of science, is to go at nature and to try to find these laws and these ways and these forces why these phenomena are happening. It doesn't matter if you're a believer or not. A non-believer can do a better job than a believer. That is possible. But it is not the job of science to explain the natural law itself, or the natural way, or the natural force. So now we have phenomena, and we have laws that explain it. Science will bring to me these laws that explain the phenomena. Now, it cannot explain the law itself. That's not the job of science, because science its basis is that these laws are there in nature. The fact I'm going in nature, I'm looking for laws, I believe they exist. Otherwise, I'm looking for something that I don't believe in. It doesn't work. So the fact that you're going in nature and testing, you believe that these laws exist. Now, you cannot explain what you're looking for. That is the specialty of somebody else. Okay? So now let's come to the question, do we need to submit in the presence of Allah to explain the natural phenomena? I have two answers for you. For a limited explanations, that means for the how things happen, no, you don't need to submit to that. I can explain everything in nature, how it happened, without submitting in the presence of God. Everything will be, because there's laws and laws, forces, and ways of nature that we can find them. It doesn't. Allah Azza wa Jal is not one of these things. Allah Azza wa Jal is not a law, it's not a natural force, it's not a way of nature, it's something else. So I can find all these ways and laws without submitting in Allah. I don't need them, because He's not one of them. Okay? But if you're looking for a full explanation, that means why, I'm trying to explain the law itself, why the law of gravity has to be in this way but not in a different way. Why the gravity constant, it has to be, I don't know the number, 9.81. Why it's not 100.13? The science cannot answer. This is not the specialty of science. The science will tell you it's constant and this is the value of it, and that's it. Why? Not my area. They will raise the flag. This is where another science, another kind of knowledge will come here. You cannot deal with this. This is actually the philosophy of the science now comes in. And remember when I told you philosophy cannot prove the existence of Allah Azza wa Jal? Philosophy is based on the assumption that Allah exists. So philosophy is like religion. It is based on the assumption that Allah exists. Then you deal with philosophy, okay? So you cannot have full explanation of phenomena without believing in Allah. But I can have some explanation, yes. The hows, I can do that. Everything, you don't need to believe in Allah, okay? But to have full explanation, no, I cannot do that. Full explanation, you have to believe in Allah Azza wa Jal. Now you're dealing with a different kind of knowledge and different kind of science that is based on the assumption that Allah exists. So this is the answer to that. So don't be insulted if somebody said we can explain everything by science. I said, yes, you can. I can explain everything by science. Because this is the job of science, is to look for these natural laws, and Allah Azza wa Jalla is not one of these natural laws or natural forces. We have to believe in that. He's outside all this natural thing. He's outside that. And natural selection explains, so I'll give you an example, that natural selection, Brother Mustafa here talked about, explain the presence of various species and no need to call for the presence of God. This is one of their examples that they will use. But here will come the question, is this process guided or unguided? Because they will claim it's unguided, it is random, it's unguided. This is where I disagree with them. No. You don't have evidence for that, it's not unguided, because this process actually is the greatest, in my mind, as a philosopher, this is the greatest actually guidance and evidence for the presence of a God and a creator. Because this is a guided process. And this is how the argument will go. This is a philosophical argument or an evidence. Nature, by all its parts, always allows for the existence, survival, and reproduction of the best fitted individuals. And whatever, by all its parts, always allows for a certain end and a characteristic goal, always doing it, it has to be for an agent that is willing and intending. If he's aware of what he's doing. There is somebody who put these parts suitable for the goal before the goal existed, because he see the goal before it existed. So there has to be somebody who put these parts together, and he can see the goal before that goal existed, because these parts has to come together in a certain way to fit the goal before the goal exists. There has to be an intelligence behind that, seeing the goal before the parts. Otherwise, how these parts will come together? These parts will come together. Now, let's say the car parts come together in a certain way so that we can travel from one place to another for 1 hour instead of taking me maybe half a day. How did these parts come together in a certain way to do that job? There's 3 ways. Either by chance, okay, or by nature. There's something natural about these parts to come together, or there's somebody intelligent who did that, who's seeing the goal. Okay, so let's go one by one. Why it has to be an intelligent being who did that? Well, these parts cannot come always together by chance, because nothing always happening by chance. This is a rule. The fact that it's always snowing in January here is not by chance. If you think it's always snowing by chance in Michigan, that's not. There is an explanation why it's snowing most of the days in January. Anything happens always or most of the time is not by chance, because the definition of by chance is that something that doesn't happen always. That is the very definition of by chance. So if we have an 80-degree day in January, this is by chance, because doesn't happen always. That's why I call it by chance. This is the definition by chance. It doesn't happen always. So there is nothing will happen always by chance. So we excluded chance. It's not there. How about the natural? Why it's not natural? Why it has to be an intelligent person, an intelligent being who did these parts together? Well, in order for these parts to come, they have to have some nature in them to bring them together in a certain way always. Okay? Now we're talking about something similar to a chemical reaction, where the hydrogen and oxygen, they always come together in a certain way to form water. They have a nature in them that will allow that to happen, always. Okay? Well, when something like that happens, there's a characteristic about these kind of reaction. The hydrogen in the water doesn't behave like the hydrogen outside the water. They have totally different chemistry. So that's not hydrogen. Just the name is hydrogen, but it's not hydrogen. Otherwise, it will kill us. It's not hydrogen, it's not oxygen, this is called water. So the parts that come into these natural phenomena, it has to change itself. It will be different. These parts in the car, the engine come with the wheels, they're still the same thing. The engine and the wheels, they have to be caused. It's not chance, it's not nature, because they still have the same characteristic. Then it has to be an intelligent being who designed these parts always, carrying in his intelligence the goal before the parts. Because the goal has to be before the parts. So now we excluded these. So what I'm trying to tell you here, that natural selection is actually an evidence that it is guided, because it cannot be by chance, because it's happening always. And it cannot be natural because the parts that carry this natural selection is not, it's the same parts, whether before, without selection or with, it's the same parts that's doing the job. It's not hydrogen in water and hydrogen outside the water. These are different chemistry and different product. They only share the name. The third argument they have is the burden of proof. These people cannot prove what they're claiming. They cannot prove Allah doesn't exist. It's impossible actually to do something like that. And I will tell you, they know that, and they try to explain why it's impossible. But they said, well, it's not, we're not saying something. You guys are claiming that Allah exists. It's your job to prove it, and we don't have a proof for that, so it's your job to prove it. And this is the smartest man in the 20th century, Bertrand Russell, saying, many Orthodox people speak as if it was our business to disprove the existence of God, rather than them, the believers, prove their existence. So it's your job, it's not my job. So this is very critical for them, because why? Because they cannot prove that, and I will prove to you that they're wrong. They have to prove what they claim. They're claiming something here. Allah. So in the absence of evidence of God, this is what they're saying again. In the absence of evidence, it is okay to believe that God doesn't exist. And this is logically incorrect. Because I will give you an example. In the absence of evidence of life on the other planet, it's okay to believe that for sure there is no life on another planet. It's wrong. You can't. The fact that you don't have an evidence for life on other planet doesn't give you the right to claim that that you know for sure that there is no life. You just can claim your ignorance about it, but you cannot claim that you have an evidence. Okay? So the absence of evidence, it's not always an evidence of absence. That's not true. You cannot convert that, because this is very critical. So what they're claiming here is wrong. What I want to prove to you here, that anybody outside this red circle here in the middle has to come up with an evidence. If I'm a believer, I say God exists, I have to show my evidence. If I said He for sure exists, I'm responsible for my evidence. If I say I know Allah exists, but I'm not 100% sure, I have to come with an evidence. That you still, anytime you leave that neutral state where you don't know, anytime you favor one, if you're a rational person, if you're a human, you have to have an evidence, because we always follow our evidence. We will never leave that central position until we have an evidence. This is what the meaning of rational. There has to be a cause and a reason for that move that we just did. Okay? And these guys, when they move to the other side, they have to do the same thing. Once they move from that neutral state where I don't know either way, to I know for sure God doesn't exist, or I know that He doesn't exist, but I'm not 100% sure, both of them have to come up with their evidence. It doesn't matter if you're negating something or proving it, both are equally responsible for an evidence, if they are rational and reasonable. If not, you can do whatever you want. But if you're reasonable, you have to come up with an evidence. Now, we are, as a believer, we have evidence, and I just showed you one. Natural selection is an evidence. And I told you about our ability of judgment. We can make judgment about infinite number of triangles. Just by seeing few triangles, I have a proof. I can call every triangle from now till the day of judgment what kind of characteristic it has. Where did I come up with this power? I've never seen it. Even the triangles that are going to come in a billion years from now, I know that their angle will sum to a certain number. How did I know that? So this kind of power is not a materialistic power. It has come from, this is a deficient characteristic. Remember the deficient attributes? That has to come from a perfect attribute. Somebody with a perfect attribute give me this incomplete characteristic that I have in my mind to do that. So these are evidence. We have them. Even logically we have them, and these guys don't have a logical evidence for their claim. So they will claim to you, well, it is impossible to prove something negative, the non-existent. Oh, you can prove the existence of something, but we cannot prove it. This is impossible, because it is the proof, you are proving something that doesn't exist. But logically, that is possible. Actually, I can prove a lot of things that doesn't exist. If I look in the sky and say, I will see the moon is waxing. It's not a full moon. Then I know for sure the non-existence of an eclipse. It's impossible, physically impossible to have an eclipse tonight. How did I know the negative now? How did I know for sure I have an evidence that the eclipse is not going to exist tonight? Because, I will tell you the reason, because it's waxing, it's not a full moon, okay? If it's not a full moon, then I have an evidence of a negative, that something is not going to exist. Or I will tell you this person, it's impossible. The existence of AIDS is impossible in this individual. I'll tell you, you will tell me why. I'm a reasonable person. Give me the evidence. I'll tell you he's an HIV negative. I test him 4 times and he's HIV negative. It's impossible to be an AIDS. Okay? So I have my evidence. So now it's reasonable for me to move to that. So it is possible, I'm trying to tell you, it is possible logically to prove the negative or the non-existent of something. Like, the non-existent of AIDS, because he's an HIV negative, the non-existent of a lunar eclipse, because it's not a full moon. So all these, once I have the evidence, I can proclaim something with certainty that it's not going to exist. These guys cannot do the same thing with Allah. It's impossible. Logically impossible. They don't know it's logically impossible, but I know it is logically impossible. But they're trying to defend their position, with these claims. But they cannot do that. That's because of the nature of Allah. The first cause, you cannot disprove the first cause, but they think it's because it's negative. It's not because it's negative. There's a lot of things in the real world that we can prove the negative of it. And here's the smartest man in the 20th century again. Bertrand Russell. I'm not sure if some of you were familiar with this man. He's a very strong personality with an English accent, very sophisticated, and he has that language where he make fun of everything. He will give you examples that will trick your mind. In my mind, he literally acts like the Sahara of Musa. He will trick your mind like Sahara. When you see what he's coming with, you say, oh my God, he's so smart, and he can make these examples that will trick your mind. And this is one of his examples that every atheist is aware of, and he's going to use it against you. It's called the teapot argument. Well, Russell here is trying to make fun of all the believers. He said, you believers are claiming these things, and we are supposed to prove to you. He says, what you're doing to us, you believers, is like somebody who is saying, because there is nobody can prove the claim that there is no revolving teapot between Earth and Mars, since nobody cannot disprove that, then it is unreasonable for you to doubt it. He's saying you believers are doing something like that, because nobody can disprove that teapot, then everybody has to believe in it. Well, that's not what we're doing, but that's a very tricky example. Some people say, he has a point there, because that's similar to what we're doing here. But he's not. I'll tell you the trick in his example. He's using something very tricky. So at the end, you don't see it here, he's saying, we are all teapot atheists. So according to your example, we are all teapot atheists because we don't believe in this teapot revolving between Mars and the Earth. So what is the secret for this trick? If you are familiar with atheist argument, they always come with that God is something like a flying spaghetti monster. This is somebody, Bobby Henderson in Kentucky. The pink elephant, because you cannot disprove the existence of pink elephant, then you have to believe in it. Or it's because you cannot disprove the existence of invisible pink unicorn, then you have to believe in it. It's like the God, it's the same. They use it against you, believer. Or because you can't disprove the existence of Santa Claus or the tooth fairy, then you have to believe in it. Because can you disprove the existence of tooth fairy? I cannot disprove that. Then you have to believe in it. This is why they're saying, you believers are doing the same thing with us. It's something like that. So, maybe they have a point. Well, no, they are tricking. They're tricking you into something called cyclic reasoning. This is what they're saying. I'm saying that this is exactly what they're doing to you. They're saying, if you submit to me that the existence of your God is as improbable as Santa Claus, I will convince you that believing in him is such an irrational thing. And this is, Of course, if you believe in something, if you believe in the existence that is so improbable, that it, with certainty that it exists, then you are irrational, because it is improbable. Something most likely is not going to happen. Okay? So these guys are using an example after example of something we can sense. Did I come up through that slide? Yes. They're coming with something, basically, this is the characteristic of what they're using. Something that we can sense. If it exists, it will come under our senses, like a pink elephant. We never sense something like that. But it is possible. If it's, but it was never sensed before. That's why it is improbable. For something like that to exist is improbable. Allah Azza wa Jal, we're comparing Allah Azza wa Jal with something like that. The evidence for Allah Azza wa Jal is everywhere. I cannot assume and submit to him that Allah Azza wa Jal is improbable like this example. If you submit to him, then they're already going to prove to you whatever they want, because you already submit Allah Azza wa Jal is improbable. He doesn't have these evidences in the universe or in our souls or our nafs. Then it's easy to prove the non-existence of Allah. So you see now what they're doing here. They always give you an example of something that is almost impossible. They make the analogy that this is an analogy to Allah Azza wa Jal. This is almost impossible. Allah Azza wa Jal evidence is everywhere. I cannot submit to you as Allah is improbable to that degree. Another argument they will use is that everyone is atheist. This is the argument. I like this one because they have some point there. Well, there are so many gods in this universe. There is about 2,000 gods that people believe in. You are atheist in 1,999 except one. I'm atheist in all of them. So the difference between me and you is only one God. So you're atheist in almost 2,000. I'm atheist in one more. So why am I so bad? So I like that. This is a very convincing argument. So basically, they're trying to sound as if it's not that bad. Atheism is less radical than it sounds, and it is just a disbelief in one more God. So we're really very close to each other. And this is not true. Because you have to know that I am here, I'm saying here, I'm not an atheist in the Christian God. I'm not. Actually, so if I'm an atheist in the Christian God, that means I don't believe in their God. No, I believe in the Christian God. But I don't believe that he exists the way they think. But I believe he exists. Remember, Christianity is a monotheist religion. It's not polytheist. They say Allah is one and three. Now we disagree with that part, but they say Allah is one. For them, Allah is one. They attribute other things to him. He has son. But Christianity is a monotheist, and Islam is a monotheist, and Judaism is a monotheist. All these are monotheists. So I believe in Christian God. I don't believe in the way they believe in him, that he exists in the way they believe. Okay, but I believe in him because our God is their God. It's the God of the Jew. But I don't believe that he exists in that same way they think. The way they think, I disagree with that. But their God is my God. This is very important to us. So we cannot go and argue with these theists as individuals. I'm a Muslim and Christian. These people are arguing against religion. They don't care you're Muslim or Christian. Against all religion, or some lump, one package. Okay? So when we argue back, we argue as a majority. We are the majority of the human being. Majority of human beings are believers. They believe in God. Now I disbelieve or disapprove a lot of things that they attribute to their gods. That's the different thing. But they still, a lot of them believe in God. There are actually other believers that maybe they're not mentioned in the Quran. I don't know about the Buddhism. It could be another religion. I cannot judge that. Okay? Now, I know Christianity and Judaism, that's mentioned in the book, but not all of them are mentioned. Could be other religions that's not mentioned in the book that is there. That's not my call. Okay? But what I'm trying to say here is, no, I'm not an atheist in a lot of gods. I disagree about some details of what they're doing. So my God has to be one. It cannot have been in a human characteristic. It cannot have siblings or wife. All these attributes. So I can disagree with people about these attributes, but they still have the same God. Okay, this is a different kind of disagreement. A disagreement about the existence of God itself is a different thing. So no, they're wrong in that. So they're not just one God more. These guys are disagreeing with the existence of God as a whole. The idea itself, not about attributes. The idea of God itself doesn't exist for them. Okay? And the last thing I'm going to touch is the agnostic, because these are different people. These are not atheists. These are the people who will say, well, we don't know the answer. That Allah Azza wa Jalla, or the idea of God is totally beyond human comprehension. Now, I want to ask you, do we believe the same thing? We Muslims do. It's kind of similar to what we think of, aren't we? God is totally beyond our human comprehension. Are we similar to them or not? Because there's a slight difference between what we... Well, this is the difference. They're saying God is totally beyond the human comprehension. We will say God is beyond total human comprehension. Allah is beyond, I cannot surround, I understand the idea of Allah. This is beyond my comprehension. So Allah is beyond a total human comprehension, not totally beyond the human comprehension. These are different meanings. One of them, that we have no idea at all about Him. The other one, I cannot know Him all the knowledge. I cannot know everything about Allah. I can know certain things about Him, but there are other things that is impossible for me even to know about Him. Okay? So this is a different thing. These guys are saying, agnostics say, if He's totally beyond the human comprehension, we cannot agree with that. Okay? Because that means nothing. We cannot prove Him. There is no evidence for Him. There's no evidence in the universe or my source about Him. And the ayat are contradicting that. So now let's assume a question has two answers. Yes, A, yes it exists. B, no, it doesn't exist. So some people will say A, some people will say B. Okay? Now I'm going to show you, are they required for an evidence or not? Now, whoever said A, they should have, if they are reasonable, they should have a reason, an evidence. Why the answer is A. Yes, it exists. B, no, he doesn't exist. They should have an evidence for that, otherwise they're not rational. Now, there's one student, he said, you know what, I don't know the answer, I didn't study. I'm guilty of ignorance, I don't know the answer. Is he required for an evidence? Somebody will say, I'm guilty, I'm ignorant, I don't know the answer, I don't know whether it's A or B. There's no evidence. He's ignorant. He's admitting he's ignorant, and that's okay. He doesn't know the answer. But there's one student there saying, so you know what? The answer is not A, it cannot be A, and cannot be B. This question doesn't have enough information to answer this question. A is wrong, and B is wrong. Is this individual required to show his evidence?
Yes.
Yes. These are agnostic. The agnostic are playing the games between these two ones, and they're trying to trick us. They said, well, we are saying we don't know, that's why we're not, they're trying to run away from the evidence. We are ignorant and we don't say the evidence. But in reality, they're arguing with the theist and the atheist, and they're trying to prove that both of us are wrong. They will tell him, what is your evidence? He said, no, I don't have an evidence. I'm saying I don't know. No, you are saying we are wrong. You are a different kind of I don't know, the one that required to show evidence. Okay? So I will give you an example of that. I have an equation that one equation has two variables, and one answer is saying x, it has an x and y. That equation, one equation, x and y, and with numbers, a, x for sure equal 5, x for sure doesn't equal 5, not equal 5. I will tell you, from what I know, it cannot be A, it cannot be B. I know for sure it's impossible to be A, the answer cannot be A, and cannot be B, because I know an equation that has two variables, in order to solve it, you have two equations. This is a math rule. I have knowledge. I can argue with anybody that they're wrong. Anybody who answers A, I will tell him he's wrong. Anybody who answers B, I will tell him he's wrong. But you will not, you know what, I have an evidence. I'm required to show an evidence. I'm arguing with them. I'll tell them, you know, you're both wrong because this is one equation, two variables, impossible to be solved. You cannot know whether it's 5 or not 5. Both of them are impossible. Okay? This is what these people are doing. They're arguing with us, but they're trying to run away from the evidence. You cannot do that. You have to show your evidence. Unless they say we're ignorant. We are like a little child who was born yesterday, I don't know nothing about God, then they have to silence and sit and don't argue with anybody. They will accept that. They're saying they're ignorant, no evidence, that's fine. But they're not, that's not what they're doing. They say they know. They say it's Allah Azza wa Jal is totally beyond our comprehension. That is a statement, you need an evidence for it. Okay? So this is a kind of knowledge. When I say this equation with two variables is totally beyond answering or beyond the human comprehension to answer it, I should have a rule that will support me and evidence for that. So this is what they're saying. And I'm going to end it here just for questions. But there are so many arguments these people have, and some of them are very convincing, especially for people, young people, who don't have a strength or background in logic and analyzing these problems. And like I said at the beginning, the truth has two ways. Either you take the easy way out and you will everybody will be safe. You're safe. If you take the easy way out, that means take it simple, don't go very deep in the ideas, and follow your religion and your book, and you'll be safe. If you wanna be a smart kid and play with these ideas, one thing, you have to do your homework and you have to have endurance, sabr. Without sabr, it will take years after years after years after years just to answer some of these questions. Don't run away from the first obstacle or frustration or once you fall once, you have to stand up and continue. And that's exactly the value of the story of Musa with the good man, is you cannot rush into judgment. You have to be patient and follow the instruction until Allah Azza Jal will show you the right path. Okay? So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Al-Kawasri, for this enlightening presentation. Inshallah, what we will do now is, you have questions? Yeah, we're not going to take questions right now because it's time for Isha. So we will pray and then we'll come back with the questions and answers, inshallah. It is time. And by the way, as the Imam is reciting the last ayah from Surah Al-Qiyamah, in that there's a proof to the existence of God. Alam yaku, or at least a proof that the knowledge that has come to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has come from God Almighty. Alam yaku nutfatan min maniyyin yumna. Did man not know that he came from a drop of sperm, from this liquid fluid that had been released? ثم ألم يكن نطفة من مني يمنى ثم كان علقة فخلق فسوى. Then he went into the next stage of the alaqa, and then the taswiyah, the full stages. فجعل منه الزوجين الذكر والأنثى. And he made out of the male, minhu, not minha and not minhum, minhu, from the male. He is responsible for the coming of either male or female, الزوجين الذكر والأنثى. Now what does science say about who's responsible? Is it the wife or the husband responsible for whoever is going to be born, a male or female? Who is it responsible? What does science say? The male, XY chromosome versus XX chromosome. So the male is always responsible. Again, a miracle from the Quran, subhanAllah.
Okay, assalamu alaikum everyone. We're going to begin with the questions. We have quite a few to go through. So some of them are specifically addressed to Dr. Riyad, some to Amir Mustafa, some will be kind of obvious. So the first one is, my question relates to race and scientific discoveries such as DNA and what genes are responsible for what, etc. Imam Mustafa actually just pointed out to the ayah in the Quran. It talks about the male chromosomes being dominant. or the male being in control of that. Some people say, usually not very religious, that it is, new information, DNA. This is relatively new science. But I always tell them that Allah taught Adam all things, and that all things aren't new, that they're already known, forgotten. So the questioner is asking, do you agree? Basically, it's all knowledge eternal. That Adam alayhi salam was given the knowledge, and because the questioner is saying that they get questions about DNA and things that man didn't know before. That Adam alayhi salam in the Quran said he was given the knowledge of creation of things, or the names of things. So basically they're asking, do you agree?
Well, actually, yes. Of course, no one can disagree that the knowledge, this is one thing that I really admire Isaac Newton about. Isaac Newton, in his humility, he says, I don't claim whatever I concluded that came from my own knowledge. Rather, I was standing on the shoulders of the giants, which means he built upon the knowledge that came before him, and he came to those conclusions. Now, naturally, if you take that statement and you take that chain, it will go all the way to Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, because the knowledge that his predecessors received came from their predecessors, and so on and so forth, until it would reach Adam. And Adam was taught the names of everything by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا. Adam was taught the names of everything. I have actually can find it on our website. I do talk about this particular subject, how knowledge came and how things are taught first and foremost by names. When we have children, the first things when we teach them, we don't teach them quadratic equations. We don't teach them other things other than names. This is your nose. This is your ear. This is a door. And then on that knowledge we build upon that the names of all things. And obviously, in addition to the names, the purpose of these things. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who is responsible for all this knowledge. Allah is the only one who we should attribute whatever advances we made in science and technology to. Only Allah, no one else. Because it is He who taught us. فَوْقَ كُلِّ ذِي عِلْمٍ عَلِيمٍ. You will find above every knowledge some who is more knowledgeable, and you can trace that back all the way to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is Al-Alim, the all-knowing. Allah ta'ala.
Okay, the next question is related to a degree, but it's a good one. My college professor asked me, how can we deny Lucy, which is the oldest form of human being that came before Adam's existence? This is Darwin's theory. So there is a fossilized skull or something, and they named it Lucy, and it's considered like the oldest remnant of early man.
Well, I'm not an expert in the field, but from my general reading, I know that Lucy, I'm not sure what's the scientific name, it's like a southern monkey. It's not really from the same species of a human being. A human being are Homo sapiens. Yeah, but Lucy is not one. They know for sure it's not a Homo sapien. Yeah, it has a different name. It's a different species that is close, but is not a species. It does not share the same characteristic of a human being. So we're not denying that it's a scientific discovery. It exists, and it's one of these extinct species, but it's not Homo sapien.
It definitely is not Homo sapiens, but could be very well. We don't know for sure, but could be throughout the ages, because man, the Bashar evolved over thousands and thousands and maybe millions of years before Adam reached that age of maturity. تسوية فإذا سويته ونفخت. So it could be, it may very well be that this is one of the stages. Lucy may very well be one of the stages prior to Adam becoming Homo sapiens. We cannot discount that fact. We can't disprove that. How do we know? It may very well. And I showed you, in this process of evolution, how the Quran agrees with that.
Okay, the next question is regarding natural disasters. How do you respond to the question, if God is so merciful, why do natural disasters happen and kill people? Also regarding disabilities, especially children born with disabilities, how do we respond to questions about this?
Yeah, this is coming to the question of why. When we ask about the question of why, we're not really asking about a mechanistic approach to how things are happening. Like I explained in my lecture, this is a different type of question. You're questioning actually the law itself, or the force, or the driving force. Why it's happening this way? This is a very difficult question. This is about the goal, or what is the purpose or the intention of this happening. Now, knowing the goal or the intention is one of the hardest things for a human knowledge. We start from a materialistic knowledge, always descriptive in nature. Then when we evolve into the causative agent, then we move into a higher level. The last level is we know the full picture why this is happening. Okay, I can give an example. Like I'm an orthodontist. I teach my assistant to do bend wires and do braces. After a few years, she becomes better than me in how to do stuff. This is the how knowledge. That's not what makes you an orthodontist. I know why I'm doing this. That's why she has a few techniques that she's better than me in doing it. But she will never be able to carry this technique to the next level because she doesn't know in a full way why she's doing it. This is the ultimate kind of knowledge that it requires education and training and practicing for a long period of time. And like I said in my lecture, the fact that we know why, the good reasons that is associated for the evil, like a scorpion. What's good about scorpion or cobra? Or we don't know, and we shouldn't question the existence of Allah just because of our ignorance, because we are in a stage of acquiring knowledge. We cannot patient and seeking knowledge is the only approach we have.
Next question, what does Islam say about a good atheist who commits no harm, gives charity, doesn't hurt anyone? What does Islam say about him in the afterlife and consequence?
Well, this is a question about judgment, and we are in no way to judge any person. But we do know for a fact that if anybody declares openly, I don't believe in God, then he is in the category of kafir. Anyone who openly declares, yes, there is God, then he is a mu'min or she is a mu'min believer. Now, whether his or her iman reaches the level of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is something else. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us very clearly in the Quran, from among you there will be those who disbelieve and those who believe. Let me share with you the ayah again from Surah Al-Kahf. وَقُلِ الْحَقُّ مِنْ رَبِّكُمْ Say this truth has come from your Lord. فَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيُؤْمِنْ Whoever wants to believe, let him believe and profess his faith and say, I believe. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. وَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيَكْفُرْ And let whoever wants to disbelieve, let them disbelieve. This is the choice they made. They may openly declare, I don't believe in God. إِنَّا أَعْتَدْنَا لِلْكَافِرِينَ نَارًا أَحَاطَتْ بِهَا سُرَادِقُهَا أحاطت, did I recite correctly? أَحَاطَتْ بِهِمْ سُرَادِقُهَا Allah had prepared for the openly kafir a fire prepared for them that is going to be their punishment. This is the knowledge that we have from the unseen that we have received from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala regarding atheists who look, whether you're good or bad in this world, people will judge you on that basis in this world. God in the next world is going to judge us basically on two things. Number one, and most importantly, faith. Whether you believed in Him or you did not believe in Him. If you believed in Him, Now we go to the next set of things that Allah is going to judge us with, and that is our deeds, our actions. For those who don't believe in God, khalas, it's done for them. For those who profess. Now for the agnostics, I really don't know. Allah may very well be merciful to Darwin. I don't know if he died on this state. Because he was a believer, he was a big believer. He came from a strong believing family. And then he was confused, totally confused. I don't know. So we cannot judge individuals who did not declare kufr openly. However, we don't know. They don't know. So leave those to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let us not be in a position where we judge individuals whom on the Day of Judgment we may be very well surprised and pay penalty for our judgment here on earth.
And again, that reference was from Surah Al-Kahf, ayah 29.
Yeah.
Yeah, just for the questioner. Next question. Is there a correlation between Islamophobia and atheism, or are they both influenced each other?
I don't know if there's any correlation between Islamophobia and atheism. There may be some Islamophobes who are atheists, and maybe there are some atheists who are not Islamophobes. You find atheists from what I have known and the few that I have encountered. They're very nice people, very kind people, very generous. It's just the way they believe in things. I really don't know if they have any relationship between the two. On the other hand, I do know that some Islamophobes are very ingrained in religion, but their own way of their own religion, be it far right fundamental Christians or far right or rather moderate Zionist or whatever the case may be. So I'm not sure. And I will not be surprised if I find an atheist who is Islamophobe, but on the other hand, I will not be surprised if they're not.
Yeah, some atheists actually are the biggest supporters of the Constitution and actually back us a lot for our right to believe in religion in this country. So the next question for Dr. Riyad is, how do you respond to an atheist when you point out the miracles in the Quran, for example, the mountains bringing stability to the earth, or the barrier between the two seas, one being sweet and one being bitter, these other various natural or earthly miracles that are in the Quran? How do we respond to an atheist?
Usually atheists are very ignorant about religion in general. I mean, they don't have that depth of knowledge. Even if I met some ex-Muslims, they decided to become atheists, but they don't know anything about the religion that they live. They have some social problems. But I personally believe that these miracles are. Remember, religion is based on the assumption of believing in God. It does not work to prove the existence of God. Once you believe in Allah, religion is what you need. This is where you start. And these are part of religion. So these are things that will strengthen our understanding, our faith, and to reach the higher level of faith. That's how I see that. Once you deal with atheists, people who don't believe in religion, I believe you have to go into the rational approach with them and leave religion aside. You cannot use, these arguments. I can use them against a Muslim if he's arguing with me, but if somebody who doesn't believe in my book, it's not as holy, then these are a minor evidence that I can use in my argument against them.
Right. I cannot agree more or disagree more. Of course, those that are mentioned in the Quran regarding those so-called miracles, they only strengthen us, strengthen our iman. Now, in my presentation, I cannot use what I shared with you with an atheist because it does not appeal to them and the rational mind. Things like an expert like Dr. Al-Kawasmi, he would do way much better job with them using reason and logic and, rationalize with them than using, because simply they don't believe in the book. So the first premise is that you have to believe first in the book in order to appreciate those ayat in the Quran that talk about those miracles that we now appreciate very much when science discovers, these things, and now we look back at the Quran and say, wow, it's been there for 1400 years and nobody discovered it until now. So that makes my faith and iman very strong and firm and unshakable, and leads me to the conclusion that, yeah, indeed, as Allah mentioned in the Quran in Surah Ali Imran, indeed, in the creation of the heavens and the earth, and the alternation of day and night are signs to the men of understanding, right? And what's their conclusion? Subhanaka Rabbana ma khalaqta hada batila. That's the strength I get from it. Oh, glory be to you, oh Allah, you have not created this in vain. Whether it is the two seas, whether it is the mountains, whether it is the embryological development, you've never created anything without a purpose. The Dr. Cosby talk about the evil, little evil, and the lots of good. Doesn't matter what it is. Everything was created, even the evil, for a particular purpose. Shaitan was created for a particular purpose. And Allah allowed him to be within us for a particular purpose. Everything is with a purpose. Now, my arguments and my discourse would go well with a Muslim. So, Muslim youth who are born into the faith and do believe in God but have this hesitation. When we bring these ayat to them and show them how science, or at least the Quran, does not contradict what science have found today, they say, okay. Of course, we're not going to turn those individuals, Muslims, into becoming experts to deal with atheists, but at least we can give them the certainty that, yes, God does exist. Look, it's in our book. So we need to deal with these things very carefully.
So the next couple of questions are also for Dr. Rayad. What does atheism think of our soul? Cannot be seen by the eye, same as our nafs. We can't see it, nor does science confirm it. Is it there? And then the second question, the SA note, the first electrical impulse for life. Who do you think starts this first impulse to make the heart beat?
That's what I said when I said the way to truth. There's a simple way and there's a complicated way. For anybody who has that natural disposition, the fitrah, these are very clear. That's why in order to be an atheist, you really have that extraordinary circumstances and way of thinking to reach such an extreme decision, because it doesn't. You don't need a lot of thinking to reach the natural, the natural decision or the right decision in these things. So I agree with whatever his intention behind these questions, but these people are different. They're just taking a different approach, and sometimes they're trying to prove what they have in their mind.
Regarding the spirit, this is an important question. Well, I will tell you one thing. Science tried, because of what we talk about spirit and soul and this and that. And science, for example, I read somewhere where they would take a human body prior to death and weigh it and do some studies on it, and then after the person dies, they weigh it again to see if there's any difference in whatever the case may be. They conducted some studies to find out, is there any correlation? Can we know anything about the ruh and the spirit? And this is why I said Darwin went wrong with this, and he could not come to a conclusion regarding the spirit, because science has not yet reached. Maybe one day Allah will give them I don't know, perhaps, I don't know. But up until that point, up until this day, no one knows anything about the Ruh except the Creator. We believe in it because we believe in God. We believe in it because we are told about it. The Prophet was challenged time and again about the Ruh. The Jews would ask him many questions. Among the questions is the Ruh. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنُ الرُّوحِ. They will question you about the Ruh. What does Muhammad know about the Ruh? What does you know about the Ruh? What do I know about the Ruh? Nothing. Muhammad knew nothing about the Ruh. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنُ الرُّوحِ قُلِ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِّنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. This Ruh came by the command of my Lord. By the amr of my Lord. And you have not been communicated but little knowledge concerning the Ruh. This is what we know about the Ruh. We don't know until science discovers something that may, shed some light as to certain ayat of the Quran. Until then, it is a matter that is known only to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have to accept it. We don't know everything. Science, believe me, is yet to discover things that, later on we'll appreciate it more as they concur with certain ayat. But this is, we have not even put our finger, we just dipped our finger in the ocean of knowledge.
The next two questions involve Adam alayhi salam. In Quran, Allah says we created Adam alayhi salam without a father. How do you explain that with regard to the theory of evolution? And a similar question, where is there proof that Adam evolving from a lower form of life?
Well, as I mentioned in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that he was created in stages. And the stages were, if you want in the scientific terms, you can follow them, and whether you believe in those terminology or not, or you want to make your own terminologies, that's a different story. Yes, we do have this old legend that Adam was created without a father, and so on and so forth. But in reality, the ayah is very clear. Inna Allah astafa Adam. Okay, when we talk about Adam, prior to becoming Adam, when he chose him from some creation, he had to have chosen him from some other species that were around. So to say that he did not have a father, okay, in the human being spirit and body, yes, he didn't, because he was selected and then the spirit was blown into him. فَإِذَا سَوَيْتُهُ وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي. But prior to the spirit, he had a father. Yes, he came from other species, and those species came from other species, and so on and so forth. And this is where the ulama and of the 10th century and whatever they dealt with this subject and came to those conclusions. Now we can go visit those and then find out all these stages. But we are told in the Quran that yes, the human being went through stages. Like I said, if we accept the stages of the evolution of the earth and of the animals and plants and so on and so forth, why can't we accept the evolution of man?
Okay, we just have a few more questions. The next one. Please explain how to deal with the question, who created God? And then the second half, the relevance of double-slit experiment and consciousness in the Quran.
Now, regarding the question, who created God, in my opinion, is the easiest question to answer. This is the answer. One thing all of us agrees on, me, the atheist, the agnostic, and the deist, all of them, is none of them deny the existence of uncaused cause. All of them cannot deny. One by one, believer, non-believer, atheist, all of them, they have to come to this fact, there is a beginning, uncaused cause. The difference between us, believer, non-believer, atheist, is my uncle's cause is aware of what he's doing, he has intention, he has knowledge. Atheists believe it is maybe a gravity, maybe the universe, but it's not aware, it doesn't know what it's doing, it doesn't have intention. Agnostic cannot deny that but cannot confirm it. Deist, they confirm it but he doesn't care about it, he doesn't act. So all of us, we agree on that point. That I'm not going to answer this thing. This is to be irrational. They have to be irrational, not in order for our mind not to kill itself. We have to stop all this series for a beginning. This is, we all agree on. Then after that become differences, atheist, theist. So that question is solved. There is no, there is always, in whatever you believe in, there is always a first cause that you can't explain it. The differences in the characteristics and attributes. I believe our God cannot have the attributes in any way of a creation. That's very fundamental. For them, it could be he cannot talk, we cannot think, we cannot have this. Because my question to them then, the first cause you're talking about, he doesn't think, he doesn't talk, where is my talk coming from? And where is my knowledge coming from? And where is my power coming from if he doesn't have it? He has to have it, either if it is, like I said, it's an attribute of deficiency, he cannot have it at all, like lying and fear and shy, he cannot have these. These are all attributes of deficiency in me. It'll make me shame of myself. But there are good attributes that is deficient, like science and power and talk. I have them in a deficient form, he must have them in a full form, that's why I have them. These good characteristics, they have to come from somewhere. I cannot compare these good characteristics with the bad one. I cannot compare science, my knowledge, with my sleeping ability. One of them is make me a weak, the other one make me a powerful being. It has to come from somewhere. What's the other one? Yeah, I don't want to get in that. This is a very complicated experiment, but philosophy does deal with this kind of experiment. That means the material has two kinds of behavior. One of them, it acts like a particle, the other one, it acts as a wave. This is physics, this is pure physics. And, when we talk about the soul and we talk, this is what we're dealing with, something that is not materialistic. To actually support our argument that there is something, because some people believe everything is materialistic, but now we're dealing, the science say there is some kind of unmaterialistic behavior for the material itself.
Okay, we've got the last question here. We can end on this one. It's a good question. The atheist argument. Why do I need to believe in God to live my life? This is what an atheist will say. How do we respond?
Okay, so why do we need to believe in God to live our life? Let me first answer a question about ethics. Is it possible to be ethical without an atheist? Yes, it is possible. I can give you from the Prophet ﷺ saying, so there is makarim akhlaq before him. Is it possible for an atheist to have makarim akhlaq? Absolutely. But is it possible for them to have the tamam of makarim akhlaq? Impossible. They cannot have it. These are two different things. I just explained to you when we were talking about limited characteristic and the full explanation. Limited explanation, yes, it is possible. Limited, yes. But the full one, they cannot have. The tamam, the fullness of the ethics, you cannot have. That's a different thing. This is where you have to have the belief in Allah Azza wa Jal. And that's why we have to have religion. As a human, we cannot exist as a species without religion. Okay? Because, not because they're saying, not because ethics come from religion and we are unethical. No, we are actually ethical by nature. As a human, we are ethical by nature. But if we let nature alone bring this nature in us, this is potential, they are potentially ethical. We are potentially ethical by nature. Now, what's going to bring this potential into actuality? Either you let it by chance, then the minority of us will be ethical. Then you deal with go democracy now. If you have a democratic society, and now we have a minority who are ethical, the majority who are unethical, give me the law that we're going to come up with. The Sharia of that society. It has to start with the Sharia from the sky. You cannot start it. I'm not saying a human they're not going to be unethical. I'm not saying they're going to be unethical because they are ethical by nature. But that nature has to have something to take care of it and bring it into actuality. That's why it's all, there has to be a first religion and Sharia, and that's why we need the existence of Allah Azza wa Jal in our, that's why we need to believe in Allah, not as individuals, but as a society we need it first. Because our species will extinct without it. Imagine the first society with a minority ethical, a majority unethical. What kind of Sharia they would come up? I want a democratic society now. Whether democratic or undemocratic, imagine the kind of Sharia they come up with now. About honesty, about not stealing, about not, they're not going to come up with these laws, it's not going to happen. Although there are ethical people in that society, but they are a minority. They cannot enforce their opinion in the majority. We're done with that. So you have to start, so our species will be extinct because these dealings has to be controlled by Sharia. Sharia has to protect us. Second, because of knowledge. Because if we don't have a stable society, that first Medina, that first civilization, if it's not stable by Sharia, I'm not going to go do science and experimentation. My house is being stolen. I need, so this is it. First we have to exist with dignity, and that's what Sharia is doing it. Then we go to the next level of acquiring knowledge. These two, without Sharia, without religion, they're not going to extend. Now they're going to use, let's assume now we don't have Sharia, we can live well. But this, humanity, the majority of them are believers. They were raised by a religious family. You cannot, this is a false example, it's not going to happen. I'm talking about the first society, the first city, 100 individuals, let's talk how it's going to be without Sharia. I'm telling you, what kind of Sharia they're going to have in their own. It's not going to be an ethical Sharia. That's my opinion.
Here's my response to the atheist argument. Why do I need to believe in God? Very simple. First of all, both atheists and believers cannot deny death. كل نفس ذائقة الموت. We're all going to die. Now here's why they need to believe in God. Let's just suppose we all know that their position is that there is no God. Our position is that there is God. Now, we say that, yes, there is God, but we both agree we're going to die. We believe that we are going to go back to God. They don't believe in God, they believe they ended, their life ended, and that's it. Now let us just suppose we all die and they were right. There is no God. Well, then we lived a life, a good life in this world, following a Sharia, following a book, following instructions from a prophet that made us good individuals, contributed to society, ethical, moral, and that was good. Suppose there is no God. Okay, then we're all even, we're all okay. But suppose, just suppose, that there was God. The believers are going to win. And the disbelievers, atheists, are going to regret that they did not believe in God in this world, because in the next world, as we believe, there can be only two places, either paradise forever or the hellfire forever. Do you want to gamble on that? I'm not going to gamble. If they want to gamble on that, the chances are, if there is God, then for them it is 100% the hellfire. 100% the hellfire. Chances for us is maybe, if Allah so wills with His mercy, will make us taste paradise. Why take that chance? This is what I say. Why take that chance? Why take that chance? Believe in God. Continue to be ethical. Continue to contribute to society. Continue to explore science. Continue to be a good person. Just in case you don't know. You can't prove the existence of God, nor can you prove the non-existence of God. So it does make sense as a rational person to take the safe route just
in case, just in case. I think anybody with a reasonable sound mind would take that route. I would. Wallahu ta'ala.
That was the last question.
Thank you very much, brothers and sisters. And thank you, Dr. Thank you.